All right, so I'm going to start sharing my screen. So, like I said, thanks again for joining again today. If this is your first time joining my webinar, welcome. Thanks for coming. Today, we're going to do everything Microsoft OneDrive. Um, it is a lot. It is kind of heavy, so please note, I'm really just touching on all of these little things today. I'm not necessarily going to be diving deep. Today is more of just an introduction to OneDrive, how you access it, how you organize it, sharing files in OneDrive, and how to sync your OneDrive files. I'm going to try to get to everything. If not, don't worry, I have a follow-up, and I also put some resources in the chat for you. Like I said before, the first 20 minutes will be me just kind of going through the agenda, and the last 10 minutes will be left for you to unmute, turn on your camera if you feel that you want to, and ask any questions. So let's jump in. So first agenda item is how do I access my OneDrive? So there's multiple ways, like Microsoft likes to do. They give us a lot of different ways to do the same thing, which is a good thing. So most of you are probably familiar with this little File Explorer icon on the bottom of your screen in the taskbar. While that's opening, Chip, Cliff is going, that's my brother-in-law. I don't know why he just popped into my head. Cliff is going to be moderating the chat. So please pop in any questions that you have. He'll be able to kind of answer them for you and help you along, or, we can hold off to the end, but he is in the chat if you have any immediate questions. Anyway, okay, moving on. So again, File Explorer down at the bottom of your screen is one way for you to be able to access your OneDrive. So if you click that, you should see your OneDrive Nassau BOCES on the left-hand side if you are synced correctly. So this may be something you should check out. And if you have any questions, let us know at the end. Another way that you can access your OneDrive is going on to the web version. So if you right click on that icon that says OneDrive Nassau BOCES and click View Online, it pops open right into the web version of Microsoft OneDrive. Some of you are familiar with the web version, some of you are not. So I always like to introduce both ends and have you see things in different perspectives, so you could choose what works best for you. So this is the web version of Microsoft OneDrive. And the other way is all the way at the bottom right-hand side of your screen, next to where you would see your speaker icon. Some people may have the weather there. You also can see the OneDrive icon there as well. It looks like a little blue cloud. If you click there, 1 second, I'm sorry, I just got to move that window out of the way. You also can see your OneDrive files here. And if you click Open Folder, it pops open the File Explorer version that I showed you before. And if you click View Online, it'll again pop you right into the online version. If you're not signed into your online version, it may prompt you to sign in first. So just keep that in mind as well. The other thing you can do to access your OneDrive is if you click the Windows icon on the bottom left-hand side of your screen, you can actually click the OneDrive app right there as well. And you can right-click there to pin the OneDrive application to your taskbar at the bottom. So just little tips and tricks to help make your life smooth, easy access to the things that you use every day. And the last thing on the agenda I have as far as accessing your OneDrive is being able to put the app on your mobile device, which I put in the chat. You can put your mobile number in and it'll send you a link to download the OneDrive application. So that's there for you as well. Okay, moving on. Wow, I got through that pretty quickly, actually.
Teresa, for some people, it might be
Yes.
good to just define what OneDrive is.
Okay. OneDrive is kind of your personal filing cabinet. So you're going to think about it like that old school filing cabinet that you have sitting probably next to you at your office, at your desk right now. But it's your personal files. You don't want to necessarily think about it as a place to share too many multiple files with groups of people. Maybe a one-to-one share is okay, or 1-to-2 share, but really it's your personal storage location for your own files. Like I said, think about the old school file cabinet that you have probably sitting next to you. It's the digital version of that. Okay. And moving on. So, how do I organize my OneDrive? I get a lot of questions like this because most times people don't even know that the files that they are interacting with are being saved in their OneDrive, which again is your personal filing cabinet. So, if you are in your OneDrive and again in either location, so right now I'm in the web version of my OneDrive, but your your File Explorer version of OneDrive can look like this. So you kind of have two different ways to view it. Again, personal preference on how you access it and how you kind of interact with it. You can also change the view once you're in your OneDrive, depending on how you like to look at things. So we'll get to that in a minute. I think I have that coming up. Yes. Actually, I could go through that right now. So if you're in your File Explorer, if you click View at the top up here, here's the different ways that you can view these icons, which I think is great because it gives you the opportunity to personalize and kind of access your information in a way that best suits you. So I like to keep it on the large icons. I think it's a super easy way to see it. I'm going to minimize that for a second. And then in the web version, you also can change the way that you view your files by clicking on this little hamburger icon on the right-hand side. So right now I have the list view being shown, but you can also do a compact list view. So it kind of just squeezes everything together. And then you're able to see all of your files on one screen without having to scroll up and down. Or you could do tiles. So it really, again, depends on the way that you like to see your file saved and shown. So that's something that you can also play around with a little bit, just changing up that view. And now I'm going to show you how to make a new folder, whether in the web version or a File Explorer version. So if you're in your File Explorer version and you need to make a new folder because you're looking at your OneDrive right now and you're saying, oh my goodness, I probably have never sat and tried to organize, and there's a lot of stuff in here I don't need, and it's all over the place and a little messy. So my recommendation is to start with a folder. If you right click in the space and scroll down to where it says new, right here you can create yourself a new folder and title it however you want. A lot of times I recommend if you're trying to clean up your OneDrive, start with putting a date. You can say, December 2022, right? As of December 2022. And maybe all of those kind of old files that maybe you don't really use anymore, you could put into that folder. And then everything from 2023 and on, you can create a new folder for that. I'm going to show you also how to easily, if you're in a folder, click and drag. So I'm going to create a new folder in here and I'm going to call it training. And now I want to move all of these files into that training folder. You can easily click and drag up to highlight. Now I have all of these selected. I can grab them by just clicking on any blue space and kind of hovering over that file folder that I just made. And you'll see where it says 25. So I know I'm moving 25 files into that folder I just created. So if I let go, all of those are now going into this training folder that I just created. And while we're here, you could see the icon status is changing. I also put in the chat for you what all of these different icons mean, because if you've seen them before and you didn't know what they meant, it's good to know because it'll help you to know if your information is being stored in the cloud, if it's locally stored on your device, if it's syncing. So I put those icon links in the chat for you as reference as well. Another thing you could do is easily highlight and delete a whole bunch at a time. So if you click and drag to highlight and then right click, you can delete more than one file, folder, or any kind of document that's in your OneDrive at one time. So cleaning it up, you want to be able to kind of click and highlight a bunch of things at one time and be able to get rid of it if you don't need it anymore. So Just going back over real quick, those steps was step one, start by creating some folders for yourself. Think about how you want your digital filing cabinet organized. How would you normally file your old school filing cabinet, right? Maybe by year, maybe by month. So, whatever works for you, but start by making those folders and naming them first. And then you can click and drag, highlight and drag groups of files into those folders. And then also delete anything that's not necessary. So that's something that you could definitely do. And keep in mind, if you are syncing properly, the files that you move around in your File Explorer will sync to the web version of your OneDrive and vice versa. So I just did some changes here in my File Explorer. I'm going to go to the web version, and I want to show you how that updated. So you can see here that folder that I made in my File Explorer. Here it is. It created itself here as well. It's synced here. And then if I go into here, that new folder that I created with all and moved all those documents into is also here. So it's not like you have to do these type of changes in two locations, which is great. Pick the version that you like working in the best and kind of do all your changes there. Okay, so you can also sort and filter in the web version, which I think is really nice. So if you're in your OneDrive here and you go to sort, on the left side, you can sort by type of file, name, modified, modified by, file size. You can really sort in a bunch of different ways to help you kind of organize and look for information that you have saved in your OneDrive. So that's something else I wanted to show you here. The little eye over here, that's kind of your information of what's going on. Some people like to use it. I don't personally use it, but check it out. Play around a little bit in there and see if it's something you would use. On the left-hand side over here in the web version, I have my recent files, which could be helpful if you want to quickly access something that you were working on and can't find where it was saved. You also have your shared files here. So if you're collaborating on a document with somebody else, it would be in the shared. If they shared it to you, it would be in the shared location and the recycling bin. This is in case things get deleted, this is where you would find them. Cliff, before I move on to the next agenda item, is there anything I missed in those first two? And as far as accessing or organizing the OneDrive?
No, not at
Okay.
all. I think you touched on the main point, which is, you can work with the files in your OneDrive however you like. You have choices on how you work with those files. I think the biggest piece from an organizational perspective is that regardless of how you use it, whether or not you're using the web or the Windows Explorer view, which is what you have on the screen now, those files are accessible anywhere. So whether you're in the office, working remote, if you have that available to you,
Hmm.
out on the road and have your mobile phone on you and you've downloaded that OneDrive app, all those other things, if you got a call or you needed to access something, everything is right there, always in sync and always there and available for you to get to.
Yes, absolutely. And just a little extra plug regarding the mobile device with the mobile application. If you do decide to put that on your phone, it does have the ability to scan. So if you need to be able to scan a document, your OneDrive app on your mobile device can do that for you. It could scan it into a PDF and actually put it right into your OneDrive for you, and then you can access it from your computer. So just another little kind of tool or trick that might be useful to some. Okay, so I'm going to move on. This way we could stay kind of on task here. I think I could squeeze in the last little bit. How to share your files in OneDrive. So again, I'm going to show you in both versions. File Explorer in order to share a file. So let's see if I go into here and I want to share this file here. I can right click on that file and I can go to share here on, if I click that, it's going to open the web version, but you can also go to give access to and then click specific people. Here's where you would type the person's name. Why is that not letting me add? Cliff, I don't think it wants me to add you. Um, I don't want to waste time. So that's where you can
Yeah.
share, right? And you can also, I'm going to show you real quick, if you right click and then go back to where it says give access to, just so you know, you can also remove access that way as well. It's the option right above specific people. So that's just something else you can do. And then let me minimize this. Let me go into the web version. In the web version, again, a bunch of different ways you could do this. The three dots here, and you can click share. Just be careful. I will go more into sharing with permissions, probably in another either webinar or what the tech video, but just always be super cognizant of when you're sharing something with somebody, if you want them to be able to edit that document. Oop, I'm sorry. Did I just, no, okay, sorry. Sorry about that. I have to get back in there. I tried to move you guys out of the way and I clicked the wrong thing. Just be super cognizant of if you want the person to be able to edit the document you're sharing or just viewing the document that you're sharing. These settings have to be set before you really send this off. So just keep this in mind before you share. So if I click here, I'm going to specifically choose somebody and I want them to be able to view. I'm going to click apply. Now I can start typing in Cliff's name and I'll hit send. He'll get an email telling him that I've shared a document with him for him to view. And you can continue to add a bunch of people here and you can type a message to them as well. So again, another way you can do it is if you click the little check mark next to the document, you can click share up at the top as well, and it will pop open that same window. So just different ways to do the same thing. Microsoft likes to have that as an option. Okay, permissions, I just kind of talked about a little bit, but I'll go back into one more time. Again, just be very careful when you're sharing any document that you set these permissions specifically to match how you want the other person or group of people you're sharing with to interact with the document. These, you can even block a download and you can share these type of different permissions separately for each type of document that you're sharing with somebody. Okay, another thing you have here, and I'll show you both in the File Explorer, is the ability to either create a new document within your OneDrive or upload. Maybe if you have documents saved somewhere else, or they're on your desktop only, or they're in maybe a Google Drive somewhere and you want to be able to pull them into your OneDrive. If you're in your File Explorer, you can right click and then you can go to New. And here's how you can create those new documents. So if I wanted to start a new Word document, I could do it right from here. And it would automatically be saved right here in my File Explorer, in my OneDrive immediately. If you have documents on your desktop, you can, let me see if I can minimize this. You can click and drag them and drop them right into your OneDrive if you have it open as well. And this works either on the File Explorer or in the web version. And let me go back to the web version and I'll show you that real quick as well. Here you have the new tab right here at the top, super easy. Create a new folder or create any one of these new documents. You can even add a link to save into your OneDrive, which is good if you want to save kind of bookmarked links or resources that you want to save in your OneDrive. You could do that too. And upload button is here in the web version, right next to new. Files or a folder you can upload right here. Or, like I said before, you can easily just click and drag right in. And then the last agenda item is how do I sync my OneDrive files? This is a very, very heavy feature. So just simply, there's a sync button up at the top over here if you're in your web version where you can sync and keep in mind your files are stored in the cloud. That is what gives you the ability to access them from wherever you are. So syncing will be able to allow you to do that and also access your documents, like I said, from wherever you are. And if you edit documents in different locations and on different computers or access them in different points, you want that to translate from wherever you're going to access it again. So that's how you want to do that. If you're in the File Explorer and you want to sync, Um, where am I? Why am I missing that one? Manage access, view online. I think once you sync from the web version, it syncs for you automatically into your file explorer. Cliff, just tell me if I'm, stop me if I'm wrong on that one. But
Yep, that's correct.
okay, good. I just want to make sure. Um, if you right click on any of these files too in your file explorer, you can view online right here. And you can also choose to keep that either file or document on your device as well. So this way you have a local copy of it. So there's some other little things you can kind of do, but again, I didn't want to get too heavy-winded. I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a OneDrive overview. I talked a lot. Again, resources are in the chat. I'm going to be quiet now because I pretty much made it where you have a good amount of time to ask any questions. So we're going to give you the access now to turn your camera on if you want to, unmute your mic, and ask any questions that you want to ask.
Are you enabling their
Want me to do it?
mics? Yeah, please. Just
Meeting options. Okay, let's see. Allow mic, allow camera. See.
okay. So
Okay,
while
so
you're
you do
doing
have
that,
the ability, at this point, you do have the ability to unmute or turn on your camera if you want to. If you have any questions, if you want me to review something else, now's your chance.
a couple of quick questions
Hmm.
in the chat. One is, what is the relationship between SharePoint and OneDrive? And if
Oof,
you'd like, I can take that.
sure. I was going to say
So
that's a heavy one too.
yeah, it is a bit of a heavy one. I
Mhm,
think there are two pieces to that I think are relevant to today.
mhm.
SharePoint is actually the technology that underpins a lot of the Microsoft technology. So OneDrive is actually built on top of SharePoint as a resource. That might be a little bit more confusing than a direct answer, but the way to think about it is that everything within Microsoft, such as this, is kind of SharePoint. So the example would be OneDrive built on SharePoint, Teams, which we're in right now, and we cover a lot in the What the Tech in some of these webinars. The file library is also SharePoint, and then you can get to SharePoint also directly for document storage, document libraries, and things like that. The way that we are telling people to reference the difference between them is, as Teresa mentioned earlier, OneDrive is generally, with a broad brush, most frequently used for personal file storage. You can share out of there. It is appropriate to share out of there. The agency is trying to move folks into Teams for workgroup and program level file sharing and things like that. So as we move forward, there will be an effort to migrate more traditional shared directories and share files into that Teams environment for the place to go to share files. OneDrive is more, again, more personal storage. You can share a onesie twosie type of document out of there. Generally, we encourage people not to share with large groups of people that would need to be editing a document, et cetera. It's more appropriate if you have an existing team space to do it within that location. Teresa will, I hope that answered the question. If there's more specifics you'd like, we could certainly get into it. Teresa's reposting the resources.
I will repost the resources, and Patricia asked, is it possible to recover deleted files in OneDrive? It is, depending on how long they've been deleted, but I'll send follow-up information and
Yep,
directions on how to do that. I
yep.
will repost all the resources. Um, Diane asked, how is the decision made to save on OneDrive as opposed to my PC? I've never purposely saved things to OneDrive, but I see many of my documents are saved there. So I think, and this is my opinion, Cliff, you could follow up with me on this one, but
Mm-hmm.
um, in general, you really want to kind of stray away from saving anything on your desktop. you can save like a copy of it on your desktop or a shortcut to it so you can easily access it if that kind of works best for your workflow. But you're running the risk of potentially losing that information or that document. So you really want to be saving things and syncing everything because again, now we can easily recover that file. If something happens to your device, you can easily access those files from wherever you are. Um, so again, it's kind of behavior changes and thinking about things in a different way, but it is a best practice to save it in your OneDrive or in the cloud.
Correct. Yep.
I hope that answered
Michelle?
your question, Diane. Michelle?
How soon would you want people to move over to SharePoint? Like, when is that anticipated?
It,
Because I think there's a lot of people who are a little fearful of it
Oh, I'm
and
mhm.
sure.
really don't understand it. And um, maybe at that time there could be a more in-depth PD for people.
So you touched on a good point, Michelle,
Hmm.
and we are actually actively working right now with some departments.
Hmm.
What we've experienced as an organization, and we've kind of heard this from a bunch of different people as well outside the organization, is we've talked to people like Microsoft, we've talked to engage with Gartner, et cetera, the IT leaders, global IT leaders, excuse me, et cetera. A lot of organizations found themselves in a very similar place as we have, which is this pandemic initiated massive, very fast migration into a way that would facilitate folks not being in the office. And we are not abnormal in the sense that we have different groups down to the person level doing things a little bit differently, whether it's OneDrive, whether Teams, SharePoint. So we're a little bit of the Wild West right now, and we're wrangling that back in. As a part of that effort, again, part of the reason why Teresa was brought on board to help us coordinate the professional development aspects of that. What we're doing, we're working right now with facilities, and we're also going to be working with potentially athletics and another department to look at what they have out there and carefully and very purposefully reconstruct and train at the same time. So it's not a kind of widespread one size fits all proposition, which is why we're not doing any kind of broad announcement or telling people to move things on their own. Because what we've discovered is that without the proper training and awareness of the use cases around the multiple tools, people are using them in a way that they think makes most sense for them, and it may. So what we need to do is go around to each area and dissect your business process, the way you use files, the way you communicate with people, and find the match that works best. Again, with a focus on Microsoft Teams. If it fits, that's the way we're trying to move people. There's a whole bunch of other considerations for that, such as data security and privacy, where agency files are located and how they're accessed, how they're classified, how they're tagged, what kind of security gets put on top of them as a default by policy, that we need to discover before we find the best fit and the best approach for each area. We know as an organization that we're very big, we're very diverse. Every program is a little bit different and works a little bit differently, and we want to make sure that the technology matches against the program needs and not have the program match match their own needs to the technology and only use the technology the way they think they can use it. Any good technology implementation puts the business first and matches the technology to it in the way that makes sense. So we have a bit of discovery to do.
Hmm.
To the short answer to your question is we're making our way around, and as quickly as we can make our way around and do that kind of discovery is as fast as we're moving. And as we're able to move. But we are starting at a program level, and we're working with a couple of departments now to restructure is probably the best way to put it. A lot of it's an example going into the pandemic. A lot of programs created a team for everything, right? So they have a team, a team, which creates sprawl in multiple locations and more navigation to go about finding what you need to find. Whereas a better approach, most likely, is to create a singular team with channels, with appropriate permissions and things like that. So to have a consolidated single point to go and access everything. And it makes it just more fluid and more dynamic and easier to manage for everybody. So it's an important consideration, but we need to kind of reel it back in and I don't want to say re-implement because it's already there, but slowly reconstruct and train at the same time.
Mhm. Hope that helped answer your question, Michelle. So it's
Yep,
a
thank you.
yeah, it's a lot. So we're not just kind of throwing everybody to figure it out on their own. We want to make it really kind of intentional and help you and support through it.
Yeah, I think that
Intentional is a good
our
word.
department is um, all levels of
Mhm.
feeling comfortable with technology.
Absolutely.
So you have some people ready to dive in and some people who don't want that change. So I
Right.
just wanted to see
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and
how that would
you
go about.
HR in particular is very diverse in terms of
Yes.
very specific functions.
Yes.
And you deal with very sensitive data. So we need to make
Mhm.
sure that we're handling it appropriately and that it's structured in the right way that makes the most sense, both from an organizational
Yes.
perspective, security perspective, and program perspective.
And we're working very closely with IT as well. A lot of these kind of meetings that we're having with departments, they're part of them as well. So this way it's kind of a collaborative, like this makes the most sense for this department effort.
I think Meter had his hand raised for a split second. I saw it. I'm not letting you off the hook, Meter.
Yeah,
Did you
I
have a
think
question?
my questions kind of gotten answered with the conversations going on. I would, Teresa, are you open to like a 10-minute one-on-one? If people have a question or what? Because I'm in that category of when the pandemic hit, we made teams for everything,
Mhm.
most of which I don't use.
Mhm.
But if I had 10 minutes to sit with you and just kind of go through my folder, my teams, and say, look, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, that might be very helpful. Is that on the table?
Yes. If you I can well, actually if you click on any email that I've ever sent,
Uh-huh.
underneath it says book time with me. There's a link
Okay.
under there, so my booking link is there. So you could always do
Okay.
that if that helps. This way you can pick time that works best for you as well.
That'll be great. You might live to
Yep.
regret
I don't think so.
Meter, I come with the meal. Be careful.
it. All right. Thank you
um,
very much.
of course, no
Thanks, Meter.
problem. And Patricia, I did put in the chat to the information on how to restore deleted files or folders in your OneDrive as a backup. So this way you have that information. Um, no problem. And like I said, I also put the link for you to get the OneDrive app on your mobile device. And I also put the link for the icons that you see in OneDrive. This way you have a reference for all those icons that you do see. The little blue cloud versus the green check mark versus the arrows that go in a circle versus the X, because sometimes we see that and that gets a little scary. So you'll have reference for that there. And the OneDrive quick card or quick guide, it's a PDF. I actually think it's a great resource. It's made by Microsoft, so it's really up to date and just to the point. It's not too convoluted and too much information, but it's a nice reference to either save in your OneDrive or maybe bookmark it so you have reference and access to that as well. And it is 1:05. I do not expect anybody to stay any later. We already kept you 5 minutes past the time. And I always respect everybody's time. And thank you so much for joining. The next What the Tech webinar will be on March 1st. That link to register will be starting to go into Monday morning announcements starting this Monday. And will also be in my What the Tech email tomorrow. So if you want to register for the next one and spread the word, some more people register, that would be great. We will send a follow-up email either tomorrow or Friday with just a quick feedback questionnaire, just so we can continue to make these the most meaningful for you. So just keep a lookout for that. And if there's any other resources you want me to share with you regarding OneDrive, let me know. I will share those as well. And thank you guys so much for joining. Have a wonderful day. Hopefully it's not freezing out. They say it's warm. So everybody enjoy. I'll hang around for a few minutes if anybody has anything they need to
Thank you.
continue
Have a
to
good
ask.
day.
Thank you.
Teresa,
Yes.
Hi, can I ask you a
Hi.
quick question?
Yeah.
Um, so in our department, we use Teams a lot, and forgive me, I missed the first 15 minutes and I didn't have audio, so I was in and out of the waiting room, and it
N-
was a wild time over here.
I
No
know. I wondered
problem.
Um,
why you kept popping up. I'm like, I already
I,
admitted you like
I'm
I'm
I
kidding.
I had to get on
I'm
the web version, and I was like, this is what I wanted to see, and it was a panic moment, but it's
Don't
okay, we're
worry.
here.
We always record these though. They're in the YouTube channel as well, just in case.
I
Yeah.
figured. So our department here uses Teams
Mhm.
all day long. I mean, when the pandemic hit, like we were in it to win it. And
Oh
right
yeah.
before we went home, we took all of our local files out of the black hole, I called it, and took what we needed and put it into Teams, and
Yeah.
started collaborating that way. There's just a lot of confusion in our department about the files that are in Teams, where they can be accessed in OneDrive, and then where they can be accessed in SharePoint. And, we're told to use
Mm.
SharePoint to share files, but I share files out of my OneDrive to my team, and then we look in SharePoint, and then they're there, and then they look in Teams, and then they're there, and then they're in another spot. And so it's just like all these like
Mhm.
homes, and I
Mhm.
I navigate my way around easily,
Mhm.
but I think what would help is just, and I know what Cliff you were saying is kind of like the agency's working on figuring out these best practices and
Mhm.
how to kind of instruct people on like what to do. But I think that that kind of clear path of like,
Mhm.
like if we're using Teams, how does that talk to the web browser? You know what I mean? Like I'm on my Teams desktop, and I'm pretty good about it.
Mhm.
But if I have to get into my web browser in OneDrive, and I know I can see my four different teams, and if I go in there, I can go to the files tab, and it's the same thing that I'm in Teams here. So I think that that's where a lot of the confusion comes in of like where the files live, and then I guess really, what's the best practice of
That's
how
them,
to
right? Mhm.
share files back and forth. And I mean, we still have people using the local drives, and it's syncing on
Mhm.
some machines and it's not syncing on other machines, and so it kind of just becomes this like, I don't
Mhm.
want to call it a mess or a black hole, but that's kind of what it is.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
and that's what we're getting to,
That's yeah,
Elizabeth.
that's
Yeah,
Is
exactly. And we're
yeah,
trying
exactly.
to we're trying to build it slowly, if that makes sense, by
yeah.
just giving people the opportunity to learn one aspect so that they
Okay.
become familiar and then
Yeah.
build on that, and then that will become like the best practice, because I think if
Okay.
we throw too much at people at once, that's when this kind of black hole of a mess
So,
Yeah.
happens.
and
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
tell you this, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
So it's one of the number one. I was over in CIT probably before you were there because I don't remember you.
Probably. Yeah, I've been
But
here since 2017. I don't know, something like that. Seventeen,
since
BP
18.
when?
I don't know.
before
Okay,
BP
yeah,
before pandemic,
yeah.
or
So it
AP.
could be as
Before, definitely.
so as you
Right.
were coming in, I was likely coming over here
Yeah, yeah,
to administration. So I
yeah.
spent 17 years of my life over there in CIT working, with the knock and all the other stuff. So that's kind of where I come from. So, and
Okay.
I say that because I know how things work on the IT side, and I know how things work on the user facing side. And what we purposefully did was, and I'm still over in Lipinski quite a bit and
Mhm.
work with Chris and Sandeep and all of them
Mhm.
regularly.
Mhm.
So one of the things that I sat down with Teresa and the knock team with was answering your question for us, because what
Mhm.
they're going to be
Yes.
looking for us to do is to push out that best practice. And what
Yeah.
we decided in that meeting is that unless there is a very, very specific reason to point people at SharePoint, we are not going to point them at SharePoint,
Okay.
because Teams is SharePoint,
Yep,
right?
I know. I
And
know.
you
Mhm.
can, so the easy thing is that if you really need to start getting granular with security and things like that, you can go into Teams and say, open this file location in
In
SharePoint.
SharePoint.
And you
Mhm.
can get to all of those granular controls. It's the same thing. SharePoint, what you're looking at in Teams is a SharePoint document library. It's just
Right.
exposed
Okay.
differently.
Right.
So, and that's where a lot of confusion comes in, right? What Teresa
Right.
said is accurate in here, is that we want people using OneDrive for more of the one-off, very explicit sharing, and the
Mhm.
Teams location for your traditional file share type location, right?
Mhm.
And that's what we want people using. We don't want
Okay.
the mass majority of people going into SharePoint and creating document libraries and things
Right.
like that, because again,
Mhm.
Teams is a document library. That's what it
Exactly.
is. It's a SharePoint
Yeah.
document library. It's just
Right.
showing
Okay.
differently, which is also why people are confused when they get to that and find themselves navigated. Somehow I found myself in this web version and I see all of my stuff. Well,
Hmm.
that's not abnormal.
Yeah.
We just want to really define that, to your point. Tell people OneDrive is this, Teams is this. If you have an explicit need or you're a power user, then we can take you down
Yep.
the SharePoint road so that you can get much
Right.
more explicit in functionality and things like that. One of the things
Right.
that Teresa didn't cover today is that if you notice in Teams, when you bring it up and you go to one of those file locations, you get the sync button there.
Hmm.
So you can sync just the way Teresa showed with OneDrive. You can sync that file location, and then that will appear in your File Explorer, Windows File Explorer,
Hmm.
right? So that you can just navigate one way, right? If you're not
Right.
doing a lot of dialogue and things like that back and forth in Teams, you may just prefer to use Windows Explorer. And as long as you sync, it's all the same stuff, right?
Okay.
The
Okay.
problem with Microsoft is that, and as great as it is, that there's this technology that exists everywhere, that's also the same problem. The
Yeah.
technology exists everywhere and it exposes itself the same stuff in different locations and with a different
Exactly.
view.
Yeah.
So it
Right.
And
confuses people.
it could be a good
Yeah.
thing and a bad
Yeah.
thing because people
Yeah.
like
Yep.
different ways to access stuff, but people also hate that because then it's confusing because then which way should I access everything?
Right, right. And that seems to be the
Mm.
conversation that we have in our department a lot is
Yes.
where should I be going to look
Yeah.
for my
Yep.
stuff? Because right now they're living in 3 or 4 different places. And I think that that's a good thing. It's just more about the direction. And we never really have an answer. And I say, it's in your OneDrive or it's in your SharePoint, or it's in your
Yep.
Teams.
Yes.
It's there. You just got to
Yes.
look.
Yes. Yes.
And
But
that's
it can get confusing. I know.
and
Absolutely.
that's part of what we're doing. So you work
Hmm.
for
Okay.
Meter, right?
Yes, yes,
And so
yes.
Meter, as you heard, requested that we'll come over, and we will.
Yeah,
But then it'll be
definitely.
a matter of, everything should roll up to Meter, right? So
Hmm.
Right,
is there a main student support services team? And
Right.
then your program area has a private channel, and you
right.
do all of your stuff in there,
Yep.
right? And
Yeah,
that could
yeah,
be the way it exists, right? But we need to
right,
kind of reel all that stuff back in. And again, I don't want to just come across and say, well, you should do it this way, because
right.
that's not the right way to use. Technology is a tool, as you
Of
know,
course.
and we need to find the way that matches, not only conforms to some
Hmm.
extent the way the
Hmm.
agency needs to do
Yep.
things, but also that meets the program needs as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would say at a start, consolidate things. If you have them in multiple locations, get them into teams. If it's a shared with your work group, get them
Yep.
organized in your personal OneDrive. If those are, some other types
Yep.
of classification of files, and it'll make it easier to transition. If we do in
Sure.
fact recommend transitioning everything into a centralized place, it's
Sure.
easy enough to move that stuff back and forth in mass.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's
I think for the most part, I'm sorry. I think for the most part, at least my little posse over here, kind of has everything where it needs to be. It's just a matter of where to go. You
mm,
know what I mean?
yeah.
And that's where it is. And so what I'm getting from this is that we really don't have a clear answer at this point, and just try to consolidate, like you said, and
And we're just
share. Yeah.
and we're just trying to inform people
Yeah.
right
Okay.
now
Hmm.
of what each kind of component in
Hmm.
Microsoft means. So this way they understand when we say like go to your OneDrive or go to Teams, they know what that means. Because some
Sure.
people don't. Like we have such broad, right, as well,
I know. I know.
you know?
Yes.
So we're
Hmm.
trying to build that like strong foundation too of just basic knowledge. And then we're seeing that each department is so dramatically different in the way that they're using things that we're
Of
realizing we
course.
really do have to almost sit and kind of help people craft out their best environment
Right. Right.
and
Right.
so that's what like Cliff was saying, that's what we've been doing, and that seems to be working best because then once we get the environment correct, then training the people who use the environment will come easier.
Okay. Yeah.
Like
Sounds
imagine
good.
we started training your department right now where things are in 4 different locations, then they would still be confused. So we would rather sit and get your environment organized the way you want it,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
then we'll train the people who use it. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Cool.
Definitely. Yeah. I appreciate your time. Thank you for doing this. Thank
Yeah,
you.
of
Yeah, sure.
course. No problem.
What do you do over there?
I'm in student support services. I support Power School.
Okay.
I'm
I was
so
trying to
I'm
figure out
Meter.
where you're sitting, because
I
I
know
see the
it.
doors in the back, and I'm wondering, if that was the entrance to the conference space, I would suggest that you might be working with Jeff Davis and the data warehouse,
On
but
the
I
other
can't tell
side.
what doors those are. You're on the other side.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm on well, Ira's over here now, but you probably know Marion. I was working
Yep.
for Marion. Yeah, so I'm on that side of
Okay.
this quadrant of the building. Yeah.
So again, just it's a very broad brush. We would say start centralizing things into a singular location as much as it makes sense, and we will meet with Meter and
Yeah.
likely the managers of each functional area
Yeah,
and say
yeah.
what makes the most sense here. And to Teresa's point, what we don't want to do is train people now and then move everything. Right.
Mhm.
So we want to
Of
get into a
course.
place
Yeah.
where it's
Yeah.
going to be in
Mhm.
the structure that it's going to exist in, and then we'll train people on what it looks like.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Sounds
All right.
good.
And in the
Thank you so
meantime,
much.
like reach out with any questions that kind of come up, that you need like immediate support in getting through.
Sure. Sure. No, I
Yeah,
appreciate. No, we're
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. I
And I
appreciate
do,
it.
Of
I do have
course.
to drop because I have to get ready for my 1:30. So,
Same.
thank you. Thanks, Teresa. It was great.
Adios.
Thank
Thank you, Teresa.
you.
Bye.
All right. Thanks.
Yep.
All right. Bye-bye.
I'm still here if anybody, because I see Brittany and Cynthia. So if either one of you need me for anything, I'm still here.
No, thank you so much. I've worked
Okay.
with Liz, so that was super, super informative. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Thank you. See you soon.
Okay, we'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.